Yeah, welcome everybody to this session on speech production. Good afternoon to the people here. Good morning and good night, I guess, to the people abroad joining us from wherever they are. I'm Petra Wagner from Bielefeld University in Germany, and my co-chair is Pavel Sturm from Charles University in Prague. And yeah, I'll hand over to him, right?
So I'll just invite the first speaker to the mic, and it's Vinicius Ribeiro, and he'll talk on the paper called Towards the Prediction of the Vocal Tract Shape from the Sequence of Phonemes to be Articulated.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the session. I'm a PhD student at Loria in France, and this is a work we have been developing this last year. Well, as you may know, continuous speech is a dynamical and non-stationary process, and it requires the interaction of multiple articulators to produce correctly the speech. And the first articulatory models that were proposed, they were numerical and geometrical, and they used a very small amount of data because of the availability by the time. And now we are proposing a neural network-based articulatory model of the vocal tract dynamics during continuous speech. So what we expect to have is start from a sentence that's spoken by a speaker, and in our case, the French. We work with French language. So what we want is to extract the phonemes that were pronounced, a sequence of phonemes with their durations, and we want to input that on a neural network and output the shape of the vocal tract that's required to perform that sentence, to utter that sequence of phonemes. So to perform this, we need to be able to observe the vocal tract during continuous speech, and for this there are many techniques. One of the most popular is the electromagnetic articulograph here, which consists of attaching small sensor coils to the mouth of the speaker and measuring their spatial position along time. But there is an obvious limitation to this, which is the amount of sensors that you can put in the mouth of the speaker, and of course the inability to measure the position of articulators that are deeper in the vocal tract, like the soft palate and the articulators in the larynx, for example. So imaging techniques comes as a very good approach for this. So for example, X-ray images, and there are limitations to this as well. For example, the soft tissues are not very clear in the image, and also X-ray, a long exposition to X-ray is dangerous for the health of the patient. So you cannot acquire longer sequences. And an alternative is real-time magnetic resonance imaging that allows a very good time resolution, and it's completely safe for the patient. So we can acquire more data. The soft tissues are more easy to observe. And the only limitation is related to hard tissues such as bones, which they don't appear in the MRI, so we cannot see the jaw, for example. Our data set is composed of real-time magnetic resonance imaging. It was acquired in Nancy, in France, and it consists of one adult female speaker uttering 107 sentences. But we are not actually interested in the image itself. We are interested in the shape of the vocal tract, in the contours of these articulators. So to do this, we track 5 vocal tract articulators in this work, which are the lower and the upper lips, the tongue, the soft palate, and the pharynx. We do this segmenting the borders of the articulator with Mascarcian network. And then we apply a post-processing technique proposed by Isaieva. And here's an example.
Le philo et la prépo manipulent de l'acrylique enterré dilué sous le tipi.
So we can track all of these 5 articulators in the video. Another type of annotation that we require are phonetic annotations. So we have the audio signal that we acquired during the MRI acquisition, but we need to extract the sequence of phonemes. To do this, we use forced alignment, and this kind of tool produces many errors. So we require a very precise a phonetic segmentation. So an expert in the subject corrected all of our annotations to have a very precise segmentation. We use a neural network that's an encoder-decoder architecture. The encoder is composed by 2 layers of bidirectional gated recurrent units, and the decoder is a sequence of layer normalization linear layers with halo activations that outputs the x and y coordinates of each articulator. And each of these blocks, they predict the shape of one articulator. So we have 5 blocks, 5 heads for this network. Our mean evaluation metric is the mean Euclidean distance. It's what we are trying to optimize. So the point-to-point Euclidean distance between the target curve and the predicted one. We also measure Pearson's correlation between the x and y coordinates, and we perform a subjective evaluation on critical articulators. Some phonemes, they have some what we call critical articulators that like they need to be in that position to correctly perform the sound. So, for example, to say pa, you have to close your lips. Ba, the same for b and for p. For t, d, and l, for example, you have to touch. You have to have a contact between the tongue tip with the alveolar region. So there, for nasal vowels, for example, we have to open the nasal cavity. So there are some, we evaluate this kind of articulators to see if the model can learn this kind of constraints. So we have 16 MRI acquisitions. We perform an experiment in which we save 1 for test, 1 for validation, and we reduce the size of the training data to the training set to see how much data the model needs. And we can see that the model, of course, with more data we have better results, but with 6 acquisitions, we noticed that when we add more acquisitions after around 6, we have how can I say? We have a marginal gain is very small. So our data our model is very efficient in terms of data. In terms of correlation between the variable the trajectories of the predicted curves and the target ones, we see that articulators that have a very few degrees of freedom, for example, the pharynx and the soft palate. The soft palate is just a switch, so it has basically 2 positions, which is open and closed. We see that the correlations are lower as expected, but articulators that have higher degrees of freedom, such as the tongue and the lower lip, we have a very good correlation in the trajectory. Here are some examples of our predictions, or what our model is doing. We have the solid curves are the predicted curves, the dashed ones are the ground truths, and we have the phoneme on top, so we can see what the model is doing. we can see that the model predicts very realistic shapes. So we from the amount of data we have, we understand it can learn a good curve, and it also can learn well the critical articulators. So, for example, we have the phoneme is st on top on the first row, and we can see that the tongue projects forward. So we can imagine that we don't have the teeth here, but we can see that there is like the model kind of understands that the tongue tip needs to be projected forward. The same occurs for K, which requires a contact between the tongue dorsum and the hard palate. For P, we see that the lips are closed, which is a requirement as well. And for nasal vowels, we see that the soft palate is relaxed, while for non-nasal phonemes, the soft palate is in a closed position. So we can see that the model can learn some of these constraints. It's not sometimes it doesn't learn correctly, especially for very short phonemes. It's much harder to learn this kind of constraint for short phonemes, such as D and L, which are very, very, very short, and the model misses this kind of phonemes. This work has limitations, of course. The first one is that we are only predicting the shape of the upper part of the vocal tract, so we still need to add more articulators to have the complete shape from the glottis to the lips. And so we need to add also the larynx and the teeth and the jaw. Second limitation is that we rely on automatic contour tracking. So it's impossible it's unfeasible actually to manually annotate all the MRI images, and we rely on this tracking, automatic tracking. So we add a performance upper bound in the model that's related to the capacity of the tracking model to be able to reconstruct to create a good shape of the vocal tract. And third is that we are working with just one speaker. Actually, there are a lot of inter-speaker and inter-speaker variability on the vocal tract. There are lots of anatomical differences, and we need much more data to be able to marginalize this variance, this anatomical variance. So one limitation we still have is that we are working with just one speaker. That's what I had to talk. Thank you, and I will take your questions if you have any.
Thank you. We have plenty of time for questions, and I think there's already one online. Maybe we start with that, or are there any? Yeah, maybe we start with a question from the room. Could you please come up here and stand near the black line?
Thank you. For simulating different speakers, can we imagine getting information from the acoustics and then with an acoustic model finely tune the shape of the vocal tract?
Yes. Now we are not using any acoustic information, and we actually we do not encode any speaker information as well. So the input is only the sequence of phonemes, but we have some ideas on. It's something we want to test is how to include the acoustic signal into the learning, so that we can work with more speakers. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So in the meantime, let's look at the online question. how many points were used to represent each of the individual articulators? Would it make sense to give more emphasis to the tongue that is represented with more data points, which is more varying than other articulators like the soft palate?
Yes. So we use 50 points for each articulator. They are I think we could use even less. We didn't test it with less points. We use 50, and maybe I think we could try to add more points for the tongue, but I think the most, from what I've seen, the most difficulty to the tongue tip is related to the tracking. It's a region that moves very fast in the MRI machine, and in the image, in the MRI images, it moves really fast, and it's really hard to track the contact. So I think the best way to go is to solve these points in the contact between the tongue and other articulators, is to improve the tracking.
Thank you. Is there another question? Torbjörn, yeah.
You said that the only input to the system is the sequence of phones. Does that mean that you don't include any durational information?
Oh yes, we take the duration information. Yes, sorry, I missed that. How we encode the duration is that our MRI film is 50 frames. So each frame takes the length of each frame is 20 milliseconds. So what I do is that I know that in an interval I have one phoneme, and I just repeat the phoneme so that each token in the input sequence is 20 milliseconds long. So that's how I encode the duration. Yes.
Are there other questions from the room? Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you for the talk. It was super interesting. One question that I have is, when you were using mask RCNN to actually get all the contours, did you do some sort of filtering to remove the jitter that you might get from the output of the network in the sequence, or you just fed that raw into the network to learn?
I just I fed the neural network with the image, and the ground truth we have is 1 pixel wide border, and to transform that from the output of the network, which is a probability map, to a single curve. We do a lot of post processing, and that's the basic idea of the post processing is that we get the 2 points in the probability map that have the largest angular distance with with relation to the center of mass of the probability map, and these are the tails of the curve, and then we connect the points with Dijkstra algorithm, shortest path. So that's basically what we do. There's some small changes for one or another articulator, but it's basically that. For example, for the pharynx, the largest angular distance doesn't work very well. So for some articulators, there are some changes, but this is the basic idea, and that's what we do for tracking. We do not add anything more complex than that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should go to the next talk, but let's thank the speaker again.
Okay. Thank you.